Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel, and I'm here for another throwback list video for you guys. Now for this list, I'll be going over, in my opinion, some of the best rock and metal albums of the year 1994. Now 1994 I thought was a very good year for music, and if your list is different than mine, that's totally fine with me. Just feel free to let me know your list in the comments. I got about 8 albums here, well, 7 albums plus an EP. Now, the reason I'm adding an EP on this list is because, well, I mean, it's almost as good as one of their studio albums, so I thought it would be worthy of being on the list. So this list I don't think is in any particular order either, so let's go ahead and get started. And I think we'll start off with Soundgarden and their album Super Unknown. Of course, rest in peace to Chris Cornell. This is definitely one of Soundgarden's best albums. If you're a fan of grunge music, there is a chance that you have heard this album, but if not, definitely check it out. This album is maybe my second favorite Soundgarden album. It's just excellent. I mean, there's a lot of people that can agree that this is one of their best. Of course, it's got really great songs like Let Me Down and Black Hole Sun, which is easily one of their best songs. Of course, you also got The Day I Tried to Live on here as well. There's a lot of really great stuff on this album. So Super Unknown by Soundgarden, definitely a really great album. So this album had to make the list. So next is actually the EP that's on this list, and it is Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains. Of course, another grunge band, and this is some of Alice in Chains' best work. Of course, rest in peace to Lane Staley, and this EP definitely has some of their best tracks, of course, like Rotten Apple, Nutshell, and No Excuses. Just excellent tracks, excellent tracks. I mean, the talent, like this EP really does show the talent in the band members, of course. I mean, the instrumentation throughout this EP is just absolutely fantastic. So that's why this EP had to make the list. Yes, it's only an EP, but it's just as good as some of Alice in Chains' studio albums. In fact, I think that this is better than some of their full-length material. And yeah, definitely a great EP. So Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains. Definitely a really great EP and worthy of being on the list. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if you want to say that, oh, well, it's not a full-length album. Who cares? I'm having it on the list, so definitely great stuff. So next, we got Megadeth and their album Euthanasia. Now, in my opinion, this is not one of the best Megadeth albums. I know there's some people that say it's one of their best, but I personally don't agree with that. I can respect that opinion, but I just don't agree with that, personally. But don't get it twisted, I think this is a very good album for sure. And this album, it does have some pretty underrated tracks, like I Thought I Knew It All and Black Curtains. Both really good songs. Of course, you got the singles, Train of Consequences and A Tout Limone. A Tout Limone is more of a ballad from these guys, and of course a really good song. And yeah, the singles are good too. You also got Reckoning Day and Addicted to Chaos, also very strong tracks. But yeah, this album, again, it's not one of their best in my opinion, but I do like it though. I think it still is a very good album. So, Euthanasia by Megadeth. So next we got some Pantera. Of course, a beloved band in the metal world. So the album that's up next is Far Beyond Driven by Pantera. I know there's some people that say that this is one of Pantera's best. I would agree with that if we were talking about the top 5 best Pantera albums, but as far as a top 3 or even a top 2, no, I actually wouldn't agree with that. I do think that the album is a little overrated, if you ask me anyway. But still a very good album. I mean, it definitely is within the top 5 best Pantera records. Of course, you got great songs like Strength Beyond Strength, 5 Minutes Alone, which is probably one of my favorite Pantera songs, to be honest. I know it's one of the biggest songs that they've ever done, but I really enjoy that one. And of course, I'm Broken, another really solid track. You also have the Black Sabbath cover on here, Planet Caravan. I think it's a decent cover. Not as good as the original in my opinion, but I think it's decent though. So yeah, Far Beyond Driven by Pantera. Definitely a solid album, so this album had to be on the list. If you love metal, there is a chance that you have heard this album, but if not, definitely check it out. So next we got some Fate's Warning, of course, one of progressive metal's pioneers, and the album from Fate's Warning that's on this list is of course their album Inside Out. In my opinion, kind of an underrated album from these guys. Not my favorite Fate's Warning album, and definitely not one of their best. In fact, I know that there's some people that say that this is one of Fate's Warning's weakest albums, which I personally don't agree with at all, personally. But yeah, this album definitely has a lot of strong tracks, such as Outside Looking In, Shelter Me, Island in the Stream, and of course Monument, which is probably the most popular song from this album. But yeah, definitely a very strong album. So Inside Out by Fate's Warning, definitely a really good album, and it had to be on the list. So next we got Queensryche, and the album that's from Queensryche that's on this list is of course their album Promised Land. Again, another underrated album, so yeah. Now I know there's some Queensryche fans that say that the band went downhill after this album, or this is the album that really made them go downhill. In fact, there's even people that say that they went downhill since Empire, since, you know, that album is a little more commercial, more mainstream, you know, not as proggy as the albums that came before. But I mean, I think that's just people being too picky, in my opinion anyway, you know, being a little too critical, I guess. But yeah, Promised Land, I like this album. I mean, what can I say? I mean, it really is a solid album. It is probably Queensryche's darkest sounding album too, and really, I don't think you can go wrong with anything from this album. This album has a lot of really great songs. Some of my favorites on here would have to be I Am I, Out of Mind, Bridge, Disconnected, and My Global Mind. I mean, just excellent stuff. So Queensryche, Promised Land, definitely a great album, and this album had to make the list. So next we got Dream Theater, Awake. Obviously, progressive metal legends, and Dream Theater is probably my favorite progressive metal band. And this was actually the album that got me into Dream Theater, the first Dream Theater album I ever listened to and all that. This album actually got requested for me to check out a few years back, and I have to say that I was not disappointed, and I'm really glad I discovered these guys, because they probably are one of my favorite bands as well, maybe. Yeah, I do listen to them a lot though. So Awake, I know there's a lot of people that say that this is one of Dream Theater's best albums, and I definitely agree with that. There's some people that say that the album is overrated. You know, that's just what they think. I mean, I can respect that opinion, of course, but I am kind of with a lot of Dream Theater fans when they say that Awake is one of their best, because I do think it is one of their best. I mean, you got really great songs on here like Caught in a Web, Voices, The Silent Man, The Mirror, Lie, Lifting Shadows Off a Dream. There's so many great songs on this album. This album definitely has some of Dream Theater's best work, so Awake by Dream Theater, this album had to make the list. Definitely a really great album. Alright, so the last album that's on this list is from Asia, and it is their album Aria. Yeah, definitely a very strong album. Kind of another underrated album in my opinion. Yeah, there's actually been quite a few underrated albums from this list. I guess you're kind of noticing a trend here, but I think Asia as a band in general is very underrated. I don't think Asia is getting the credit that they deserve. I think that they definitely deserve to be a lot more popular, in my opinion, because I think they really are a solid band. I mean, they do a good job of mixing the whole 80s cheesiness with rock, of course. If you're a fan of the 80s eras of Yes and Genesis, then I would definitely recommend checking out Asia. But with this album, it is probably one of Asia's more darker sounding albums. I know there's some people that say that, you know, this is one of their weakest, but I don't agree with that. But yeah, this album definitely has a lot of really great songs, like the opening track, Anytime. You also got Sad Situation, Feels Like Love, and Enough's Enough. Yeah, definitely some very solid tracks from this album. So Aria by Asia, definitely a great album, and it had to make the list. So there you have it. That is my list of some of the best rock and metal albums of the year 1994. So let me know what you think. Do you agree with the albums that I chose? Do you agree with some of them? Feel free to let me know. So on that note, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and take care.